Hello, my name is Jason T. Ingram. I live with a small collection of debilitating mental disorders, and I am in process of advocating for myself, and I'm doing a video series about maybe how to help other people do the same thing, especially men. So I want to do a special thing about dudes because it's very hard to admit if you are helpless and you need help and you rely on the benevolence and the kindness of other people. And one of the biggest things that I've noticed, especially if you live with mental health issues, is the fact that a lot of people, especially those that work in these kind of industries, they deal with a lot of very harmful people that come in there and they've been at risk. I knew a worker that worked for a mental health agency, and she said that they would have clients that would just come in her office that were, felons and people that were just coming off of the streets, and they had no idea what backgrounds these guys had. They would just say, okay, you need to see Miss So-and-so, and some of these guys were really abusive to her, and they didn't advocate for her. So I think some workers are really scared. Now, she was also a peer, so that was a little different situation too. But what I'm saying is that for me, sometimes I go into an office, I need help. I'm over 6 foot tall, over 200 pounds, with a big voice. Whether I'm gay or straight, some people are just fucking scared of me, and I'm tired of that because I have no history of any kind of violence. I have no record. I've never even been arrested or even ticketed for speeding in my life. I've never been drunk in my life. Yet it's so easy when people in the mental health industry, they have worked for years having people come in and out of their offices who really make them feel threatened. And I want to talk about something here real quick that I was thinking about the other day while I'm using my favorite French press here. It's now about 1 in the afternoon. I got up at the crack of noon today, and as usual, haven't had my breakfast yet. So I'm still in my nightshirt. And what I was thinking about the other day was when I was a little kid, I used to wear these flannel shirts, and some of them were bright colors because it was in the 70s. And my dad was living at a group house with a bunch of hippies, and we were outside, and there was a big bumblebee. And for an 8-year-old kid, a bumblebee is like huge compared to a honeybee. And this bee just took an interest in my colored shirt, and he was just following me around. And I was absolutely terrified. And of course, you know how parents, they say, oh, well, he's more afraid of you than you are of him. And I'm like, yeah, but he's got a stinger. And I don't want that. And I had a lot of allergies, and I was afraid of what might happen if I got stung. So I'm thinking about what it's like to be somebody of very little influence. I'm a person that with my disability status and with my history of unexplainable behavior that people get offended at, it's kept me at a level in society that's pretty close to homeless people and, hardcore drug addicts, or whatever label they want to put on people. And I'm somewhere down there. So I do know that I have an advantage because I see the world from down below. And you know how pictures that little kids draw, they have nostrils in them because little kids look up and they can see up people's noses and stuff. So sometimes I feel like, you know what? I could see more than other people can. I could see up your nose if I'm looking from below. And I don't like to use this analogy though, but I do feel sometimes that if I am wanting something from somebody, whether it's help, whether they're getting paid to help me or advise me or not, chances are there could be something that could offend them about my behavior, about the way I talk. And so that's kind of the sting, the stinger. So here's the thing is that I was being chased by this bumblebee, and And I ran all the way from the front yard to the side yard, and this bee would not fucking leave me alone. And now I think about it, and I think, you know what? I have the ability to stomp and smash that bee, and it won't kill me. But that bee has one stinger. I don't know if bumblebees are the same as honeybees, so please forgive me on that one. But here's the principle. Who's in power and who's the strongest? And it's those people that have the ability to, at a phone call or whatever, can send me to prison if they say the right things. And that scares me, because prison is full of mentally ill people that were doing the right thing at the right place at the right time, and it got misinterpreted, or people asked for help and didn't get it. So, when I come up to these providers, is what I call them, and I think, you know what, I have one stinger and I'm going to die if I use it. And they have as many chances for them to stomp on me and get away with it as they see need. And a lot of times what happens is people are very judgmental. And I've noticed that especially people that work in social service, a lot of times they get judgmental just because they're protecting themselves from more hurt. They've been hurt by mentally ill people because, let's face it, especially men, when we have a hard time managing our illness, it can be very scary for some people, especially women. And a lot of women work in social services because, let's face it, they're better at compassion, and I would rather work with somebody who's more wired to have a little more compassion than somebody else. So that's why when I try to ask for help in any kind of social service agency, whether it's nonprofit, private, or government, it's nice if there's a peer there, and peer is somebody else who lives with mental illness, or a woman who, you know, might have some first-hand knowledge of it, whether it was a family member or something like that. And those kind of people typically will show a lot more compassion. However, that compassion will turn off right away when they feel scared and when they think you're a threat. And that's something I can't get over. I'm not going to make myself shorter. I'm not going to make myself quieter. Although I've come up to these places and I have dressed up real nice and was real polite and like just put on a really nice smile, and I get the same kind of rejection. And sometimes I wonder if my approach is, if I try to act like a non-crazy person, then they look at me thinking that I'm just lying about being crazy, and so that doesn't work. One of the hardest things, though, that I see with men trying to get help is this conundrum. And it's something I don't hear talked about at all. But basically what it has to do with is, if you're in a mental health crisis and you're desperate and every day you're counting away, every day getting worse and worse and worse and more unmanageable, if you express what's inside of you, whether you've got all this rage that you cannot channel into a healthy thing, and you want to hurt other people or you want to hurt yourself, if you tell people that, then you're guaranteed to get help. Unfortunately, if you're asking for help and you're disclosing things like that, you're not only guaranteed to get help, they're going to start taking your freedoms away too, chances are. And so I'm scared sometimes to disclose things, because I know that if I get with the wrong person and they see me as a threat, not necessarily as somebody who needs help, then they're going to start caging me. They're going to start taking away my rights and privileges and things like that. They're going to start separating me from society, and I'm going to be disappearing, and it's going to be counterproductive, because when you take a person who has done good their whole life and yet their behaviors treat people bad, they're going to be treated as a bad person whether whatever their intentions are. And so that starts to really fuck with your mind after a while too. And I think a lot of guys just say, why should I try all this self-care? Why should I try these medications when I still don't have equal rights, when I still can't get the help that I need? They're taking me halfway to my recovery and dropping me off in the desert and saying, you got to walk the rest of the way. And that's not acceptable sometimes. And what's hard is that the help that you get sometimes is not sufficient. And when they do a little token of help, like they say, here, why don't you sit on the floor and there's a couple of crumbs that will fall off the table and that will be your help. Sometimes people really think that that's a legitimate concept of like, okay, well, I sent you an email. At least I acknowledge you exist, And sometimes I don't even get that. Mostly what I get is silence. And in my community here in the Portland, Oregon area, we definitely have some cultural problems here. When there is, especially when we have there's a lot of emphasis on healthcare and things like that. Holistic healthcare, the naturopathic colleges here. So we have a lot of those types of people. And those types of people have a hard time saying no. Or they just refuse to. They're scared. Because if they say no to a mentally ill person, then they're scared that that person is going to be violent. Because maybe it's happened to them in the past. But 99 point something percent of guys that come in and are looking for mental health care and looking for help have no record of violence, aren't going to be violent, and there's no way to prove. I can't walk into a place and say, I'm desperate for help, I need help. And by the way, there's no chance that I'm never going to hurt anybody, including you, my whole life. That's that probably won't work. Here's the other thing too, is that if you do have thoughts of hurting yourself or other people, you don't want to disclose that, because maybe they're just feelings that you have, not necessarily plans to do something horrible. But everybody has thought at one time or another, especially as kids, this hurts so bad to where I don't know if I could stop myself from hurting myself or somebody else. And one of the reasons why people do a lot of self-harm, and self-harm could really, really show itself in a lot of different ways. It's not just cutting yourself. There's a lot of things that people do to harm themselves that don't have to do with blood and things like that.
So here's the conundrum, the catch-22, the seemingly impossible balance that you might have to take. If you're a man and you're looking for help and you disclose too much about what's going on inside of you that could scare somebody, that could prevent you from getting help. That could actually put you in a place that you're unwilling to go. And if you come off as a situation where you feel like you might get that bad, but you're not that bad yet, and you don't want to continue to see your illness take you down and down to where you can hardly function at all, and you're going down, because only you know what's going on inside of your emotions and stuff. Most of the time, a lot of guys are totally out of touch with that, and then before you know it, you're doing crazy shit to harm yourself or somebody else, and you don't know why. But if you see yourself getting that far, and you see, oh my God, I'm going to keep sinking down and down. Maybe you've done it before, and there's nothing you can do when you're in this downward spiral, and you tell somebody, well, they might not help you because they think, well, you're not hurting yourself yet, so we're going to wait and watch you hurt yourself, and then we'll help you. Sometimes I feel that way too. There's been times, in fact, even recently, where I was like, no, I don't want to talk about that story. Basically, I was disclosing some things to where it was like, hey, this is where I'm heading if I don't get help. And I was talking to some people that had vocations in this area of intervening in crisis situations for mentally ill people, and it was like I wasn't there. It was like, hello, is anybody listening? And it really, really troubled me, because it is very hard, especially for men, to find that balance of when you're needing help and when you're demanding help, and when you know that you're helpless. For one thing, it's hard for guys to say, "Hi, I'm helpless," but uh, when men communicate that to people, it's also not received very well, because we still live in American culture where I live here. Even though we have a lot of very sensitive men in this community, it's still very rare to see men who are able to get really upfront and honest about what's going on inside of them, because there's this component that a lot of people do get scared of what they think we might be able to do. So that's the conundrum. It's a difficult balance, and I'm going to be talking more about solutions of this as well, and how I'm in process of asking for help, and I'm making some progress, and I'm also getting a lot of silence as well. So it's been very difficult. But thanks for watching.